channel left. If you're hearing this, it means you're one of the lucky ones who hasn't lost everything. At least not yet. But let me tell you, what happened? It came out of nowhere. I know it's hard to believe, but we've been hijacked. The air smelled of burning wires. The hum of machines we always took for granted vanished. The lights went out. The silence grew deafening. It felt like the world's heart stopped beating. It wasn't a storm, not a blackout, not a glitch in the system. It was an invasion. And this invasion didn't come with ships in the sky or armies marching on the streets. No, they hijacked our world. The digital one, everything we've come to depend on. Satellites, communication systems, even the military networks. Taken over in a blink of an eye. It happened in seconds, and in that moment, it felt like the world's pulse had just flatlined. People were in their homes, at work, out driving, doing the usual. When the screens went black, at first no one knew what was happening. Thought it was a temporary thing, a glitch. But when the hours ticked on and nothing came back online, people started panicking. Maybe you've seen it on social media. If you've still got a phone that works, people screaming about the blackout. But it's worse than that. This isn't just about losing power. This is about losing control of the very things we've built our lives on. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're hearing my voice, you're one of the few still connected. This signal, this broadcast, is all we've got left. If you're hearing me, you've managed to stay on air, or maybe you're using a small portable radio, maybe you've got a generator still running. Whatever it is, you've managed to hold on just a little longer, and that's something. But here's the real kicker. This isn't just a power failure. What we're dealing with isn't some malfunctioning computer system or a solar flare. These are things, entities, forces, whoever or whatever they are. They're controlling everything. It's as if our entire digital world has been hijacked. It's like the aliens are using our own technology against us, turning it into their weapons. Imagine that. They're not sending troops in from another planet. They're crawling through our cables and circuits, hijacking satellites, taking over military comms, everything. They're out there watching us, but we can't even track them, and we can't even talk to each other. If you've tried calling someone today, you already know phones are down. And those emergency broadcast systems we were all so used to hearing in the event of a crisis, gone. All you hear now is static. I know. You're probably wondering, how did we not see this coming? How could something like this just happen? I'll be honest, even I don't have all the answers, but I'll tell you what I've seen so far. And if you're still listening, I'll keep talking, because right now it's all we've got. This is where it starts. You may have felt it first when your phone died, or the Wi-Fi cut out. But let me tell you something. It's so much bigger than that. People everywhere are scared, confused, and scrambling. If you're in a city right now, you know what I'm talking about. People are trying to get to their families. They're calling the police. But the networks? Down. No one's answering. And it's not just that. It's like everything's in disarray. Traffic lights stopped working. Store alarms went off in a loop, and the sheer stillness, the world feels empty. But it's not. There are people out there. Some are fighting to stay connected, to find a way out. And others are doing what they can to make sure their families stay safe. Like that nurse I heard about in New York, working in a powerless hospital with no equipment, no monitors, no lights, just her phone's flashlight, and a lot of determination. She was still helping, even when she knew the odds were against her. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is how fast it all escalated. We couldn't even prepare. Governments didn't know what to do. If they did, they weren't telling us. Military bases went radio silent. Some of them, I can only guess, may have already been taken over. So, what does that mean for you? What does it mean for the rest of us? I'm sure you're asking yourself, how do we survive something like this? Can we? Do we just sit back and wait for this to pass? Do we fight? We fight. We don't have any choice. Listen, we need to stick together. We need to keep our wits. If you're hearing me, you're still in the game, but I need you to stay sharp. Don't trust what you see. Don't trust what you hear. Anyone can say they've got answers, but right now there's only one thing we can trust: each other. This is your voice on the airwaves, bringing you the truth, however we can find it. I don't know how long this broadcast will last. I don't know how long we'll last, but we're not going down without a fight. All right, we're still here. If you're hearing this, you're hanging on just like the rest of us. And that's good, that's something. But here's the truth. The world has changed, and not in a way we ever expected. It's been hours now, maybe even longer. Time's blurry, you know? Without clocks or the usual signals, it's hard to say exactly what's happening. The silence around you, it's not natural. It's a void. A vacuum that's taken everything we thought we knew and turned it on its head. People are trying to adapt. But it's not easy. Not when every plan we ever made depends on the systems that are now gone. Everything. Gone. From your banking app to your email, your car, to the TV in your living room. All of it. Gone. And it's not just you. It's everyone. It's happening all over the world. In the cities, it's chaos. People rushing into stores, grabbing whatever they can. But here's the thing. Without any communication systems working, the supply chains are already starting to break down. Trucks aren't moving. No one's stocking the shelves. In the middle of all that panic, there's a woman in her kitchen, trying to cook for her kids, using an old manual stove because the gas line stopped working too. She doesn't know what's next, but she keeps cooking. She's one of the fighters, doing what she can to hold the line. That's the kind of thing we need to focus on right now. Out in the rural areas, it's quieter. People are used to isolation, so they're holding up a little better. Some towns are gathering together, pooling resources. They've got one generator running, using it to power a few lights, keep the radio on, keep something going. It's not much, but right now, even the smallest spark feels like hope. But here's the hard part. People don't know where to turn. They can't trust the government. They can't trust the systems that used to give them answers. The police, they're doing their best, but their radios are down. Military forces are scattered, trying to reconnect and reestablish control, but no one knows where the threat is coming from. Here's a story you need to hear. A guy I spoke to earlier down in Texas. He was trying to get in touch with his wife, but the phone lines were down. So he packed up his truck, drove across town, and tried to get to her the old-fashioned way. Only the streets were empty. No traffic. Not a single person walking around. It wasn't until he reached the neighborhood that he saw them. Not his wife, but a whole block of homes with lights out. Windows dark, like the whole neighborhood had just frozen. That's the thing with this invasion. It's not just about taking things. It's about stopping everything. The airwaves, the grids, the communication. People are starting to look at their phones and realize they've been cut off. But they can't even ask for help. It's unnerving. You can't call for help. You can't check in on loved ones. You can't even find out if there's anyone else out there. And you know what? That's exactly what they want. We're all just left with whatever we can hold on to. But here's the thing, we're not completely powerless. I've been talking to some survivors, trying to track down information. Some of them are doing the impossible. You heard about the woman in New York, right? The nurse who kept working in the dark. She's not alone. People are trying to rebuild, to keep their worlds together. People like that are showing us that it's still possible to fight back. There's this old saying about the power of a single spark in the dark, and I can feel it now. That spark is what we're clinging to. Because when the systems go down, when everything we've relied on collapses, it's our will to survive, to reach out to each other. That'll make the difference. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do we fight back against something like this? We can't even see them. They're not on the ground. They're not in the air. They're in the wires, in the satellites, in the ones and zeros that make up everything we know. That's what makes this invasion so damn insidious. You don't need a spaceship or an army of soldiers to take over the world. You just need to control the flow of information. And that's what they've done. So where do we go from here? What do we do? Here's the thing. You don't give up. You don't let them win by surrendering. You hold tight. You hold on to whatever connection you can find, even if it's just this radio signal for now. And if you're with someone, if you're near a friend or family member, stick together. Check on each other. Hold on. Because the more we stick together, the more we refuse to let them break us, the stronger we become. There's still hope, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. I'm here. You're here. And we're going to keep fighting. Listen, stay with me. There's a lot more to come. We need to stay informed. We need to stay sharp. Things are just starting to escalate, and we need to be ready for whatever's next. This is your voice on the airwaves. Let's keep the fight alive. Okay, if you're still tuned in, that means you're holding on. And right now, holding on is all we've got left. But things are getting worse. Fast. We've been hit by a wave, a flood of confusion and chaos. I wish I could tell you it's going to get better. Soon. But it's not. Not unless we do something about it. The systems we've relied on for decades, the ones that kept us safe, kept our world running smoothly, all of them are gone. No one's answering the phones, no one's controlling the military channels, and nobody's leading us out of this mess. People who had power are now powerless. Governments are scrambling. I've been listening to emergency frequencies, and it's a disaster. They're calling for unity, calling for response teams, but no one's in charge anymore. No one knows who to trust. It's like a bad dream that's turned real, and no one's waking up. You've probably noticed it by now. The global blackouts. It's not just the lights, not just the internet or your phone. I'm talking about everything. Entire cities are just disconnected. From power grids to transportation systems, hospitals to military installations, everything that depends on the digital world is broken. I've been hearing stories from different places, from across the globe, and the truth is, it's the same everywhere. People are trying to regroup, trying to figure out who's still in charge. But here's the catch. There is no one in charge. No one's leading. No one's coordinating the response. Everything's fractured. In the UK, I heard there was an emergency broadcast that was supposed to go out, right? A national message that was supposed to reassure people, but it didn't go through. Why? Because the satellite systems are compromised. They were hijacked before the broadcast even had a chance to reach the airwaves. That's when the panic really set in. It wasn't just the lights going out. It was the trust that fell apart. If you can't trust the system, how do you trust anyone? You know, I've been talking to a lot of survivors, trying to piece together what's really happening. There's this one man. He's a former military technician, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, they've cut us off from the world, but they haven't cut off the will to survive. And that's the thing. Even with all the power and the systems in ruins, the human spirit, that's what they can't control. Not yet. But it's not enough to just want to survive. We need to start thinking about what's next, how we rebuild, how we stay connected when the systems we trusted are no more. The more I hear, the more I realize this isn't just about fighting back against an enemy in the traditional sense. This isn't like a war where you can just fight with guns and bombs. This is about reclaiming our world piece by piece, rebuilding the networks, rebuilding the systems, and maybe, just maybe, finding a way to reconnect to the rest of the world. And I'm not just talking about the digital systems. It's more than that. It's about our communities, our neighbors, our families. Some of the strongest responses I've heard have come from small towns, places where people already know each other. They've been sticking together, pooling resources, doing what they can with what little they've got left. But let me tell you something. These stories don't make it to the front lines of the news anymore. There's no more news. The media channels we used to rely on are gone. It's like we've all been turned into survivors on an island, isolated from each other, but that's not going to stop us from sharing what we've learned. We have to get that knowledge out there, somehow. The big cities are falling apart. People are fighting to hold on to what little is left. Stores are being looted. Police are overwhelmed. They're getting calls for help. But they can't do anything. Their radios are down. The emergency networks are down. It's like everyone's trapped in a maze with no way out. Meanwhile, out here, in the smaller areas, some people are doing what they can to patch things together. A guy I spoke with yesterday was telling me how he rigged up his old farm equipment to run off solar panels. He's got a little food stockpiled, but it's the people he's helping that really stand out. His neighbors, they're all in on it. They're using what little they've got, sharing it all to make sure everyone survives. I'm sure you're wondering, how long can we keep this up? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I wish I had a solid answer, something that could make you feel safe again, but that's the thing, right? Safety doesn't exist anymore, not in the way we used to know it. We're all going to have to get creative. We're going to have to find new ways of living with these broken systems, and maybe, just maybe, build something better in the process. You know, I've been thinking a lot about what we can do to take back control. People are starting to figure things out. They're finding ways to use old tech, radios, generators, the things that don't rely on those compromised systems to stay in touch. It's like we're stepping back in time, but maybe that's what we need right now. The simpler tools, the ones that can't be hacked or destroyed in a second, those might be the key to surviving, maybe even to thriving again. There are places out there that are already getting things back together. A community in Oregon, they're using shortwave radios to communicate with each other. They've even started using local ham radios to broadcast messages to others. It's not much, but it's something. And right now, something is all we can count on. So here's what we need to remember. The system is broken. The digital world we built, it's gone. But the people are still here. And we still have each other. Hold on, because we're going to get through this. And when we do, we're going to rebuild. We're going to find a way to make this new world ours again. Stay with me. We're not giving up yet. If you're still out there, still hearing me, well, that's something. It's something we can hold on to for now. But I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. It's getting harder. Every hour, the world grows quieter. We're losing more than just signals. We're losing the human connection. It's been days now. It feels like forever. And that weight, the weight of silence, it's sinking in deep. People are trying to move on, trying to adapt. But there's something they didn't warn us about when they talked about crises. Nobody prepared us for the mental toll. The psychological effects are setting in. We're not just fighting for food or for power or for our homes. We're fighting something much more dangerous. Despair, fear, loneliness. The kind of isolation that makes you question if you'll ever hear another voice again, if anyone else is still out there. Some of you I know are probably struggling right now. Maybe you're sitting in a dark room, maybe you're with your family, maybe you're alone. And it's hard to think beyond the moment. You don't know what's coming. You don't know if there's anything left to fight for. And I get it, I really do. The isolation is suffocating. I spoke to a woman earlier. She lives out in the mountains, isolated enough that she thought she might be safe from all this chaos. But when the networks fell, she lost more than just connection to the outside world. She lost her sense of normalcy. She told me she hadn't spoken to another soul in over 48 hours. Her kids are scared. They don't understand what's happening, and neither does she. She said, "I'm starting to forget what it feels like to laugh." And that right there, that's the danger. When the world falls apart, it's easy to focus on the external, on survival, on making it through the next day, on finding food and water, keeping the lights on. But that's only part of it. The real danger is when we start to lose ourselves in the silence, when we stop remembering what it feels like to hope, or worse, when we stop thinking that things can get better. But here's the thing, I refuse to believe that's the end. I don't care how quiet it gets, how heavy the silence feels. I refuse to let this darkness swallow us. The fight isn't just against whatever's out there. It's a fight to keep our minds strong, to stay connected, even when it feels like the whole world has turned its back on us. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do we keep going? How do we get through this? And I'll be honest, there's no simple answer. The road ahead is long, and it's not going to be easy. But I've been hearing something in the conversations I've been able to get through. The people who are still out there, the ones who are holding on, they're not doing it alone. I'm hearing about communities forming. They're starting to rebuild, not just the systems, but the social fabric. It's not just about getting the lights back on, it's about making sure we can still find each other in the dark. People are sitting around campfires, telling stories, remembering who they are. They're reaching out, helping each other even when they don't have much to give. Take the small town in North Carolina I heard about. They don't have power, no internet, nothing. But they've started organizing. They set up makeshift shelters, sharing whatever food they've managed to scrounge up. The kids, yeah, even the kids, are helping out, taking turns guarding the perimeter, making sure everyone's safe. They're putting up signs, writing messages, trying to find other survivors. It's not perfect, but it's something. It's people, together. And you know what? That's what we need to focus on. Not just surviving, but sticking together, holding on to what we can control, our sense of community. And that's what's going to pull us through. Look, I'm not saying this is going to be easy. It's not. And it's going to get harder. You're going to have moments where it feels like you're not sure how you're going to make it. You're going to feel like the weight of the silence is crushing you. But when that happens, remember this. You're not alone. We are still here. I'm still here. Even in the darkest of times, we need to remind ourselves that this isn't the end. It's just a new chapter. A chapter where we learn how to live with less, how to survive, when everything we thought we could rely on has been taken from us, but it's not impossible. We're going to rebuild. It's going to take time. It's going to take everything we've got. But we've already made it this far, haven't we? There are communities out there making it happen. They're not waiting for rescue. They're not sitting around hoping for someone to come save them. They're stepping up, and that's what we need to do too. It's time to dig in, to find each other, to keep going. We're in this together. And as long as there's breath in our lungs, as long as there's hope in our hearts, there's a way forward. I know it feels like we're all standing on the edge of something. We can see the chasm, feel the weight of the darkness pulling at us. But I needed you to hear this right now. The worst thing we can do is give in to fear. Not because it's not real. It is. But because when fear takes over, it shuts down the one thing we still have left, each other. I've been talking to a lot of survivors, people who are making it through this, not because they've got some magic answer or because they've got more than the rest of us. They're surviving because they haven't given up on the idea of community. They've found ways to come together, to help each other, in ways that go beyond just food and water. They're reminding me, reminding all of us, what it means to fight for more than just yourself. Look, I get it. We're all scared. People out there are losing hope. I know because I hear it in their voices when I manage to get through. People are worried about what comes next. Some are questioning whether they should just pack up and leave, try to get to a safer place, even though there's no guarantee that there is one. But you know what? Running won't fix anything. We can't outrun this. I spoke with a guy out in Arizona. He's in a small town about 100 miles outside of Phoenix. And here's the thing. He told me that they didn't have much. No power, no water, no real supplies. They had each other. They got together, made a plan, and started walking. That's it, walking. They walked to a nearby town, looking for supplies, looking for answers. And when they couldn't find anything, they turned around and went back home, together. It wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty, but it was something. And that's the key here. Something is always better than nothing. I've heard the same story over and over, from all over the place. People teaming up, strangers becoming family. When everything else falls apart, the one thing we can still rely on is our ability to come together. I'm hearing stories of people offering help to those they've never met before. In a town near Seattle, a group of neighbors is working together to keep the community garden going. They don't have much to work with, just a few seeds, some old tools, but they're sharing what they can. They're teaching the younger ones how to plant, how to grow food. They've even started a makeshift school where the kids are learning what they can from the adults who are teaching them everything they know about survival, about hope. And I'll tell you this, that's how we rebuild. Not in big steps, not by waiting for someone else to do it for us, but by doing the small human things, by helping a neighbor, by sharing a meal, by reaching out to someone who needs it. It's the small acts of kindness that will keep us from falling into the dark. I heard about a family in Chicago, a mom, a dad, and 2 little girls. They were holed up in their apartment with no power, no connection to the outside world. The dad was trying to keep his daughters calm, trying to distract them from the fear of not knowing what was happening. But then something changed. A knock on the door. It was a neighbor. An elderly woman from a few floors down, offering them a hand. Literally. She had some old books, some canned food, and a battery-powered lantern. She didn't have much, but what she had, she shared. And that moment, those small, simple exchanges, that's what's going to save us. The next part of this journey isn't just about survival. It's about coming together. If you're alone right now, find someone to reach out to. If you've got neighbors, check in with them. Share what you have. Because the more we help each other, the stronger we get. And the harder it is for them to take us down. But I need to say this. We can't be naive about the challenges ahead. Not everyone is going to be as kind. Not everyone is going to be as willing to help. Some people are scared, and fear makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. You might encounter people who are hoarding, who are taking more than they need. You might even face people who are desperate, who are willing to do anything to survive, even if it means taking from others. But we can't let fear turn us into something we're not. We have to stay human. We have to stay compassionate. We have to remember that, in the end, it's our humanity, the ability to care for each other. That will be our greatest strength. I've also heard about some of the small victories people are having. It's not much, but it's enough to keep going. In a town outside of Boston, people are working together to create a communal kitchen. They've got a little makeshift setup in an old garage, using wood stoves and camping gear to cook meals. They've made it a rule. Everyone pitches in, no one's left out. And they're making it work. It's not fancy, but it's real, and that's what matters. So here's my message for you tonight. You're not alone. There are people out there right now doing the same thing you're doing, fighting to survive, fighting to rebuild, fighting to find hope again. And if we all do it together, one small step at a time, we'll get there. Hold on. Help your neighbors. Share what you have. Reach out to the strangers who need it. We've got this. One step, one person, one act of kindness at a time. If you're still with me, you're probably wondering what's next. I get it. We're all waiting for that spark of hope, that light at the end of this long, dark tunnel. But here's the thing. There are people out there working around the clock, using the little bit of knowledge we have left trying to figure out how to stop this, how to fix it, and maybe, just maybe, how to get control of our digital world back. Right now, it's not just about surviving the physical side of this crisis. It's about understanding the science behind it, the why of all this madness. Why are the networks down? Why did everything break so fast? And more importantly, what are we going to do about it? Some of the brightest minds in the world are still trying to figure that out. But, as you might have guessed, things aren't exactly easy. You can't just grab a laptop and Google how to stop an alien invasion of the digital world. These aren't problems that can be solved in a lab, at least not the way we're used to. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a former cybersecurity expert. She was working for one of those big tech companies before all this started. She told me something that made my blood run cold. She said, this isn't just a hack. This isn't just a glitch in the system. This is invasive, like nothing we've ever seen. It's not just that they've taken over satellites or communication systems, or that they've cut us off from the military infrastructure. It's deeper than that. The entire digital fabric of our world has been compromised. Our banking systems, our supply chains, even the smallest systems we take for granted, like the ones that regulate water or electricity in your city. All of it is being manipulated in ways we don't fully understand. But here's the kicker. It's not like anything we've dealt with before. These invaders, they're not just hacking into our systems, they're controlling them. Think about it. If you're sitting at your computer, scrolling through the internet, checking emails, or making a video call, what would happen if the entire system was not just offline, but actively altered? If someone or something could take over your device, not just cut you off, but make your screen display something completely different. That's what they're doing. This cybersecurity expert, let's call her Sarah, mentioned something interesting. She said this isn't just about controlling the systems. No, it's about altering our perceptions of those systems. It's like they're feeding us a lie, making us see things that aren't there, that we think are working when they aren't. The digital world we used to trust is now a ghost ship. And we're the ones stuck aboard, still trying to figure out how to make it float again. It's hard to process, isn't it? I mean, we're used to dealing with human-made problems. We're used to power outages or a broken satellite. But this feels different. It's as if we've stepped into a reality where nothing is what it seems. It's like we're fighting an enemy we can't even see, one that hides behind every signal, behind every flicker of data that we thought was safe. But that's not to say there's no hope. There are still some scientists, some engineers, some hackers, yes, hackers, who are working to find a way to shut it down. They're trying to reverse engineer the systems that have been hijacked. Some of them are in isolated labs, others are in bunkers, some even have makeshift workshops in abandoned warehouses. They're doing everything they can to come up with something, anything, that might reverse the invasion. I talked to a group of them. There's a team out in Switzerland that's been working with what little they have. They're focusing on the satellites, trying to break through whatever code or signal the aliens are using to control the satellites. They think it might be possible to create a counter signal, one that could force the invaders out. But, and this is the hard part, it's a long shot. They don't have the resources or the time to test it thoroughly. I won't lie to you, there's a lot we don't know. The problem is so complex, and we're so far behind. But here's the thing. We've seen the impossible happen before, haven't we? We've seen humanity rise from chaos before. And if there's one thing this world still has, it's the will to fight. It's the determination to push forward, even when the odds seem impossible. And these scientists, these engineers, they're not giving up. Some of them are even working on unconventional solutions. For example, there's a rumor going around about a group of experts who are experimenting with old tech, analog systems, non-digital systems. They're trying to rebuild communication channels using radios, walkie-talkies, even old ham radios. They're working under the assumption that anything that doesn't rely on the compromised digital systems might be able to still connect us. They're also experimenting with jamming devices, portable ones, that could block the alien signals, not to destroy the invaders, but to create a temporary blackout, long enough for people to get a foothold, to reset. The idea is to disrupt their control just long enough to buy us some time, but even those solutions are complicated. The signals they're trying to jam, they're unlike anything we've ever encountered. Think about it. If an alien force has figured out how to hack into everything, how do we fight back? I don't have all the answers. No one does. But the people out there, working in the dark, with whatever they can scrape together, are finding ways to push back. It might take time. It might take every ounce of ingenuity we've got left. But don't count us out just yet. We're fighting on the front lines of a battle we didn't expect. A battle where the weapon of choice is knowledge, creativity, and sheer human will. The science is still out there. The solutions might not be clear, but the drive to find them. That's something we can hold on to. All right, if you're still with me, I know it feels like we're running on fumes. Like the world is fading, slipping through our fingers. But listen up. This isn't the end. This is the part where we get to choose what happens next. Yeah, we've lost a lot. We've lost more than we ever thought we could. But here's the thing, we've got something we didn't lose. Each other. And that's what makes the difference right now. We're not just surviving this apocalypse, we're rebuilding it. And I'm not talking about rebuilding cities or governments. That's going to take time. I'm talking about rebuilding ourselves, our communities, our connections. We're fighting to create a future out of the rubble, even if it's one small piece at a time. Every day, there are people all over the world taking the first steps toward that future. They're starting from scratch, from the bottom of a broken world. But they're doing it together. They're reimagining how we live, how we work, how we help each other, and it's making a difference. Take the group in New York I heard about. They've been using old underground subway tunnels to grow food. I know it sounds wild, but they've got greenhouses set up in these tunnels now. They've created little communities in there, small but strong. They're using every scrap of light they can find, repurposing old solar panels, and they've got generators running off what little fuel they can scrape up. It's not perfect, it's not even close, but it's real. They're learning how to live off the land again, figuring out how to make things grow in the dark. And for the first time in weeks, they're seeing green. Life. And that, my friends, is a powerful thing. Then there's the community in Detroit. They've started fixing up old cars, getting them running, without relying on the electrical grid. They're using non-digital systems for everything. They're creating makeshift windmills, solar panels, finding ways to generate power from the most basic resources. People are coming from all over the place, sharing what they know, learning from each other, and it's working. Slowly but surely they're reestablishing a kind of normal. It's not the world we knew, but it's a world that's still ours. We've got this weird thing in our human nature. We think we need everything, all at once, in order to survive. The electricity, the phones, the internet, the modern conveniences. But you know what? This disaster has forced us to strip everything down to its bare bones. And maybe that's the one blessing in all this chaos. Maybe, just maybe, it's showing us that we don't need all of it. We need each other. We need the basics. Food, water, warmth, shelter. We need love, trust, compassion. We need to rebuild our bonds, one person at a time. And while we're at it, we need to remember what makes us human. It's not the gadgets or the tech that made us who we are. It's our ability to adapt, to innovate, to care for one another. That's the foundation we're building on right now. There's another group in a town in Brazil that's figuring out how to purify water without electricity, using old school filtration methods, just like we did before everything went digital. They've been using sand, charcoal, and gravel to create water filters, and they've set up communal water stations. It's not as quick or as easy as flipping a switch, but it works, and they're teaching others how to do it, one person at a time. This is it, folks. We're standing at the crossroads of everything we used to know. We can either sit in the ruins and wait for someone to fix it, or we can get our hands dirty and build something new. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take everything we have. But I'll tell you this, we have it in us. You have it in you. I've talked to enough people now to know that we still have the drive to create, to survive, to fight for each other. We've got people out there using whatever skills they have, putting their knowledge to work. A blacksmith in Texas is forging tools. A teacher in Mexico is gathering kids and starting to teach them what they can in the absence of schools. People are reimagining how we work, how we trade, how we take care of each other. But it's not just about the basics. It's about hope, too. And if there's one thing that's been proven time and again in human history, it's that hope can fuel a revolution. Even in the darkest moments, when it feels like there's no way out, hope is what gets us through. It's what keeps us building, creating, dreaming of something better. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important thing we can rebuild right now, hope. We've lost a lot. We've lost the convenience, the certainty, the comfort of what we had before. But we haven't lost our humanity. We haven't lost our capacity to rebuild, and we haven't lost each other. The question now is simple. What are we going to do with what's left? I know it's not easy. I know you're scared. I know you're exhausted. But this is where it all begins. Right here, right now. We have the tools we need. We have the strength we need, and together we have everything we need to rebuild. I know how it feels right now, like you're standing at the edge of something so vast, so uncertain, that the only thing keeping you from falling is the sheer act of breathing. But listen to me. You're still here. We're still here. And that alone means we've already won a small victory. If you're hearing this, it means you're one of the few who've managed to hold on to some connection, some thread of the world we knew. And right now, that's worth something. It's worth more than you might think. Because even in the worst of times, when it feels like the whole world is breaking down, that connection to each other, that spark, that flicker of life, it's the one thing that can't be taken from us. I'm not going to lie to you. There's still a long road ahead. We're far from safe. We don't have all the answers, and some days it might feel like we're fighting ghosts, an enemy that we can't see, can't touch, but one that's still out there somewhere in the shadows, manipulating everything we've ever known. But here's what I've learned. When you strip everything away, when the world gets smaller and the noise fades, the things that really matter rise to the surface. People, community, compassion. Those are the things that will carry us forward. Those are the things that are going to get us through this. When the dust settles, and it will settle, we're going to look back and realize that we didn't just survive this invasion. We redefined what survival meant. I've heard stories from all over the world now. In the aftermath of the chaos, I've heard about people in rural villages surviving on nothing but their wits and their willpower. I've heard about doctors working without equipment, nurses saving lives using their hands and the last of their supplies. I've heard about people in small towns coming together to rebuild, to share what they have, to teach each other how to live without the things they once relied on. And yes, there are still pockets of resistance, small victories where people are starting to take control of their digital infrastructure again, pushing back against the aliens who thought they could erase us from the inside out. But the biggest victory? It's this. We're not giving up. It's easy to get lost in the fear, to feel like it's all slipping through your fingers. I get that. I felt that too. But here's something I've come to understand. over these last few weeks. It's not about how many battles we've lost or how many systems have collapsed. It's about the fact that we still have each other. We still have our minds, our hands, our hearts. We still have the ability to rebuild. Not just the world we knew, but the one we're going to create together. In these moments, we've discovered something incredible about ourselves. We've rediscovered our humanity. And if we can hold on to that, if we can keep fighting for each other, for our communities, for the simple things that keep us going, we can rebuild this world. We might not get back everything we lost, but we will get back something even more precious: the will to live, the will to love, the will to rise again. And that's not just something to hold on to. It's something we can build on. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. None of us do. But here's what I do know. We're still here. And we'll keep fighting. Not just for survival, but for a future that's ours to shape. As I sit here, in the stillness of this moment, I want you to think about something. Think about what kind of world you want to build. Because right now, we're in a position to create it. The ground is broken, the old systems are falling apart, but that means there's space to lay new foundations. There's room to make something better than what we had before. Maybe it's a world where we don't rely so much on digital systems that can be hijacked. Maybe it's a world where we focus more on real, tangible connections with each other, with the land, with the things that matter. Maybe it's a world where survival isn't just about fighting to stay alive, but about fighting to make something worth living for. It won't be easy, but I know this. We've got what it takes. So, as we head into whatever comes next, remember this: you're not alone. We're all in this together. And as long as we've got each other, we've got a chance. Stay strong, stay human, and when the dawn finally breaks, we'll rise with it. This is not the end, it's just the beginning. As we wrap up today's broadcast, I want to leave you with this thought. Despite the darkness we face, despite everything we've lost, there's still hope. We're still here. And as long as we keep moving forward, keep building, keep remembering each other, we're not truly lost. No matter what the world looks like around us, there's always something worth fighting for, always something worth remembering. So, let's keep going, together. Even when things feel uncertain, remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. We might not have the past, but we have today, and that's enough to make tomorrow worth living for. Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, if it helped you feel connected, or maybe just a little less alone, please do me a favor, like this video, share it with others, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to us. And if you want to hear more of these daily broadcasts, you can also support us by clicking the join button on our channel. Every bit of your support helps us keep going, keep sharing, and keep telling the stories that matter. Until next time, keep safe, keep strong, and remember, even in the silence, we are still here. You're still here, and that's all we need to keep moving forward. See you soon.